Let us now start with our first banner design. For this, I'm going to make 3 out of 4 lines of a rectangle. Now, marking a point away from this at the center of the fourth side and then joining the 2 sides to that point. Now, to make it look a little 3D, I'm adding the shades to it. Our first banner design is now ready. Let's move on to the next one. For this, I am making a rectangle first. Now, marking the center points of the 2 opposite sides of this rectangle and then extending them a little to make a back side of the ribbon. Our second banner design is also ready. You can write anything over here in this block. Let us now move on to third banner design. For our third banner design, I am going to make 3 out of 4 lines of a rectangle. Now I am going to mark a point at the center of the fourth side and then joining the other 2 points to that center point. This time the point is invert these 3 lines as we did in the first point, that was the outside of 3 lines. In this design it's inwards. Now making it a 3D design so that I'm adding a highlight to it by extending it a little, but at this corner, as you can see, I'm extending it a little bit more. Here I have extended this corner a little extra, but that's totally up to you. You can avoid this if you want. I'm adding a little design over here to make it look more eye-catching and unique. You can write the content in here in this box. 3 designs are done. Let's move on to the fourth one. This design is more like a hanging signboard. You can write the content in this box. We are now done with the fourth banner design. Let's move on to the fifth banner design. For this, I'm going to make a round corner square. Now replicating it half to make it look like a 3D design. Adding 4 circles at the 4 corners of the square just to make it look good. Now shading the replicated square by making some random lines in it. Our 5th banner design is also ready. Let's move on to the 6th banner design. For this, I'm going to make 2 parallel lines and then join these 2 parallel lines by turning it into an arrow kind of a structure. Adding dotted lines to the corners. 6th design is also ready. Let's move on to the next design. For this, I'm going to make a rectangle first. Now extending one line from one side of the rectangle. Now making it look like a folded ribbon, that is why I'm making this small triangle over here at an angle to make it look like it's a folded ribbon like this, and now joining the other 2 points with a V kind of a structure to make it look like a ribbon that is cut at being this shape. Now shading this complete triangle to make it look like it's a 3D kind of a structure, and this makes it look more beautiful. You can write the content here in this box. Let us now move on to the 8th banner design. This is a kind of design that makes it look like it's a small piece of a ribbon that is being cut from both the sides in this V kind of a style. Adding these some lines here and there, like making some parallel lines to the ribbons to make it look more classy and make it look more beautiful. Our 8th banner design is also ready. Let's move on to the 9th banner design. For this, I'm making 2-sided arrow sign board first. Now extending the 2 parallel lines from all the 4 corners by leaving some space between them, and then we will join these lines by making a double-sided line for the pointed arrows. So now the 9th banner design is also ready. You can write in here this box. Let's now move on to the 10th banner design and the last design for this video. More we will continue in the next video. For this, I'm going to make 3 out of 4 lines of a rectangle and then joining the 2 lines, making the point inward of these 3 lines so that it looks like the ribbon is cut in a V shape kind of a style. Then turning it into an arrow sign to make it look like it's an signboard that is directing to somewhere and pointing to another direction. So this is a kind of a signboard banner design. So now we are done with our 10th banner design also. So for this, I'm going to make a rectangle first and then making the parallel lines to the breadth of this rectangle. Then making the lines extending these breadths to a sideways. You can write the name or the content in this box. Let's move on to the 12th banner design now. For this, I'm going to make a rectangle first. Now adding circles, small circles to the length of this rectangle. Our 12th banner design is also ready. Let's move on to the 13th banner design. For this, I'm going to make a rectangle first. Now adding an arrow to it so that it looks like an arrow signboard now. Adding parallel lines to the length of this rectangle. Our 13th banner design is also ready. Let's move on to the 14th banner design. For this, I'm making 3 lines out of 4 lines of the rectangle and then joining the 2 lines of the rectangle to the point that is marked inwards of these lines. This is one of the most basic banners. Let's move on to the 15th banner now. This is a curvy kind of a banner. This is going to be our first curvy banner in this class, and now for this we have to make 2 parallel curves to make it look like that it's been curved whole together. Now making this to show it like it's a bit rolled and then coming out of it, so it's more like a flag kind of a thing that's being rolled in between. Now adding a small stick to it so that it looks like a small but a heavy flag. We are done with this. Let's move on to the 16th banner now. This one is also a simple curved banner design. In this we are going to make 2 lines and then a curve in between that is being followed by another curve that is parallel to the first curve, and then we will add some little highlights to it to make it look like it's being rolled at the ends and it's a 3D kind of a banner. So just to make that, I'm adding some shades over the corners here and at the opposite side of it. We are done till now. Let's move on to the 17th banner. This banner is like a flag only. The difference here is that the banner is a little smaller, but the stick is now longer than the earlier one. Highlighting the stick here, as I have to highlight this stick to make it more look like a proper flag rather than just a stick. Let us now move on to the next banner, that is the 18th banner. This one is also a flag kind of a banner. This time the banner is more smaller than the previous two, but the stick is almost the same size as we did in our 17th banner. Highlighting the stick here is compulsory for me because I want it to look more heavy flag rather than a smaller flag, and I have rolled it here in between because it's like draped cloth over there at the stick, and I'm also adding some shades to it to make it look more realistic. Let's now proceed to the 19th banner. For this, I'm going to make a rectangle first, and then I'll make a hidden kind of a triangle so that it make it look like a 3D structure and make it look like it's being rolled and bent at an angle. Now extending these folded banners to make it look like the ribbon is being cut at an angle and making a V kind of a style. Let us now move on to the 20th banner. For this, I'm going to make a rectangle first and then another rectangle at some distance below it, starting from its mid approx. Then joining these two rectangles to make a Z kind of an alphabet. Now shading the part that is being used to join these two rectangles to make it look like it's being not efficient to write names over there. Adding these folds here to make it look like it's a 3D structure. Let us start with another doodle. For this, I'm going to draw a line segment. Now making it more like a swing sign board. Adding dotted lines to make it more graceful. This one is done. Let's move on to the next doodle. For this, I'm going to draw two lines making an alphabet symbol of L, or you can say it's like the first quadrant of a graph, and adding two arrows to the end of these two lines, and then making two parallel lines that are parallel to each other, but they are actually intersecting both the lines that we drawn earlier to make L. Now adding dotted lines to these parallel lines, and we can write the names between these two parallel lines. Let us now move on to another design. For this, I'm first making a triangle here, making a small circle at the tip of this triangle. Now making a rectangle using the base of this triangle and filling it in, making some parallel and random lines into it. Now continuing it further to make a bigger square over here this time. Now making a dense triangular kind of a structure at one end of the square to make it look like it's a bundle of pages, or maybe the sheets, we can say a bundle of sheets that are kept like this. It may be like a calendar or something, and then adding some shade to the baseline to make it look like it's a 3D structure kept over there. And now filling the triangle with some lines to make it a shady area, and also adding some lines to the circle that we have already made at the top of this triangle. We can write the context here in this box. We are done with this one. Let's move on to the another banner design. For this one also, I'm going to make a triangle first. Now making two circles at the two corners of this triangle and then joining them, making it a log kind of a structure, like a wood log. Now making two parallel lines from these circles downwards and then making a point inward these three lines and joining them to make a V kind of a structure, like a ribbon is cut being in this shape. Making two parallel lines that are very close and parallel to the other two parallel lines that we already made. Adding a small circle at this point and then adding some lines to it to make it look like it's glowing. Let's move on to another design. This one is a very simple design in which it's being like three lines and making a point inwards these three lines and then joining them, making a simple V. Let's move on to another doodle. In this, we have to make three lines out of four lines of the rectangle and then make a point inside these three lines and then joining these two lines with that point and then highlighting these V-shaped structure twice and then also the upper line twice. Let's move on to the other one. This is also a similar kind of a banner design. In this, we are just flipping it with an angle of 90 degrees. You can say we have rotated it and then made the same kind of a design and then adding some dotted lines to highlight this in another way. These three designs are almost the same, but the difference is being highlighted in a different way. Also, let's move on to the another one that is also very much similar to these three what we did just right now. In this, we have to make three lines out of four of rectangle and then making a point inwards and then joining it, making a V shape. After that, I'm going to give it a 3D kind of a look so that I'm making it a replicated point at its backside, and then I'm going to shade this to make it look like it's a 3D banner. All these four designs are very much same and they can enhance your work as per your demand and as per your choice. Let's move on to the other design. So now this one is also a different kind of enhancement of all the four designs that we just drew, and these is just highlighted in a different way and can be used when you want to use a heavy banner but a simple banner. So you can use this one as this one is highlighted twice or thrice as compared to the other four that we just did. So this is also done. Let's move on to the next banner design. Now this one is going to be a very different kind of a shape. For this, I'm going to make two parallel lines and then join them using a curved line, and this is very much visible over here, and then extending two lines above it and then making a semicircle upwards over it. So it makes it look like very different from all the banner designs that we have done till now, and then extending it a little lower side also. Yes, now this is a very different kind of a design. Now adding some lines over here and there to make it look like it's a ribbon that is being cut in the V shape. You can write your content in here in this middle line, and I'm adding some dotted lines to the other part of it so that you can add any subtitle or subline if you want to write anything else other than the main content. That is totally up to you. Now this looks really different right till now. Let's now move on to another design. For this one, I'm just making a simple rectangle over here and then To its width, I'm going to draw a one big, one small, one big and one small line on both the sides. Now I'm going to make a semicircle over it that is starting from some distance from the starting but going to touch the end point of this rectangle. So you can see here the space is left in the front side a little. I'm going to make a triangle over here to make it a little unique kind of a banner design. Now repeating this design that we have made on the upper side of this rectangle to the lower side of the rectangle, and making the same kind of a triangle over here also, so it looked like a very different kind of a banner. And we can write the material in here in this small rectangle which we have made. And now I'm doubling this because I'm not using the dotted line here. That is totally up to you. If you want to modify, you can modify these designs as per your choice and as per your working style. Let us now move on to next banner design. For this, I'm going to make two parallel lines and a curve in between them, and then highlighting that curve by making it twice so that it feels like it's a ribbon that's waving, and then adding some background of this and some extensions to make it look like it's been cut in a V shape at both the ends. So it's a small piece of a ribbon that is being cut from both the sides in a very stylish way and is kept in a very stylish way to become a banner. This one was simple and common. Let's move on to the next pattern design. Now this one is a bulletin or a note making kind of a banner design that you can use in. Here you can make a checklist, a note list, any kind of a list that is more specifically for list kind of a design. You can make it less longer and you can use it like a banner for a name, but this looks good if you use it as a list kind of a banner design. So yes, it's for making lists. This one is done. Let's move on to the next one. This one is my favorite and you wanna love it too. I'm very much sure about it. For this, I'm going to make two parallel lines, making a curve between them, adding some side points to make it look like a ribbon first. Now it's looking like that it's a ribbon banner. Now adding 2 points on both the sides to make it look like these are 2 holes in which there is something plugged in, and now extending these 2 lines just to make it look like it's a rope and hanging a board kind of a structure over here. This box denotes a board that is hanging from a ribbon. I know that's ironic, but this looks good. Highlighting this box, making some dotted lines here. So we are done with this much. Let's move on to the next banner design. This one is a really unique design that you hardly gonna find on internet or any other place or anyone's notes. It's a fresh design that is made by me and it's invented by me, I will say that. Yes, and it's one of my favorites and very simple to make, and it's very full of curves, right? It's not much technical, it's much of imaginary kind. It looks like there are 2 wings that are swinging. Decorating the board a little to make it look more heavenly, and then adding a small oval kind of a structure over here, right here, to make it look complete. So now this one is also complete. Let's move on to the next banner design. For this, I'm going to make 5 sides, out of which one is totally curved. The others are joined each other in a curved manner, and this looks like more of a shield kind of a structure. Then doubling them up to make it look good. After that, adding some dotted lines to it to make it look heavy, and then adding a circle and some designs to it, some lines to it. This one is now done, so let's move on to the next banner design. So for this banner, this is a very curved and spiral kind of a banner, and these curves are hard to give words to. So this is better for you to observe it and to practice the curve to the best, and make practice for making better designs. This point you may feel these curves to make a little difficult point to work on, but once you start doing it, you're gonna feel it, you're gonna love it, and you're gonna make them easily. It's for the very first time. If you're doing it, only then you'll feel that this is a really difficult task, but follow step by step and you will be able to do it on your own very easily, and later on you will keep these all points in your mind to make these spirals easily. I'm highlighting the curves to make it look like it's being bent from that side, and I'm highlighting this complete area to make it look like it's not the front of the ribbon that we have to work on, it's the back side of the ribbon. That is what this shading is denoting over here. So you can just visualize the things and then work on it. That will help you work better. So we are done with this banner design. Let's move on to the next banner design. Also, this next banner design is also a curvy spiral kind of a design that might make you feel that it's difficult to make, but it's truly not. You can practice them more and learn more about them. So we are done with this one. Let's move on to the another one. In this we are going to make a square, but it's not a perfect square. It's a square that has so many rounds in it. It's a roundy kind of a square, you can say. Each side is curved, each side has a spook in it, and it is not a particularly square, but it's a square kind of a banner. And you can observe here the steps that I'm following to make this, so you can do that on your own now. I'm just decorating all the spokes that are coming out of these sides of the square to make it look heavy, and also I'm going to add some lines to the corners from inside of the square pattern. And you can do whatever you want to do to make it look heavy, or you want to make it look light, so you can ignore the steps of decorating it. That's totally up to you and up to your work area. So these lines are denoting the corners of this square. So we are now done with this banner design also. Let's move on to the last banner design of this class. Yes, the class is now going to end. For this, I'm going to make 4 corners, and 4 corners are joined to each other from inward curves. Now decorating each and every curve from inside to make it look glowy and spacious. Adding some of the lines and dots at the bottom of this design to make it look like something is hanging out of it, something good and stones kind of thing is hanging out of it. So that's the complete look of this pattern design. So these all are banner designs. You can practice on your own.